Charles Bronson, the Hollywood tough guy, left behind more than just a legacy of iconic films. He left a fortune that stirred deep emotions in his family. But why did his inheritance bring tears instead of smiles? Was it the size of his wealth, the way he divided it, or the stories hidden within? Stay with us to know the truth behind Bronson's final gift to those he loved. Charles Bronson, the Pennsylvania coal miner who drifted into films cast as a villain and became a hard-faced action star, notably in the popular Death Wish vengeance movies, has died. He was 81. Charles Bronson, known for his rugged charm and intense on-screen presence, was more than just a Hollywood icon. With a career that spanned over 4 decades, Bronson captivated audiences with his magnetic performances and became synonymous with the tough guy persona. With an impassive face, seemingly chiseled from a quarry, and a hand never far from the trigger of an automatic, Charles Bronson was among the big screen's quintessential tough guys. As tributes poured in after his death at the age of 81, he was remembered for his brooding, macho presence as an actor, his oddly self-deprecating sense of humor, and the extraordinary, even tasteless, violence of his movie output. Bronson died at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, with his third wife, Kim, at his bedside. His health had deteriorated sharply over the past few weeks, after a long struggle with Alzheimer's disease. The son of a Pennsylvania coal miner, Bronson fell into acting after the Second World War as an escape from his grim working-class background. From the start, he was pegged to play criminals, outcasts, and gunslingers. Without the looks to qualify as a leading man, an Italian newspaper nicknamed him Il Brutto, the Ugly One. He seemed destined to languish in smaller character parts. A trio of films, The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, and The Dirty Dozen, nevertheless captured audiences' imaginations, especially in Europe. Alain Delon invited him to France to co-star in Adieu l'ami in 1968, and Sergio Leone cast him in a career-defining role in Once Upon a Time in the West. Bronson so encapsulated the strong, silent type that it sometimes seemed whole hours would pass without him saying a word. An episode of The Simpsons once spoofed him by imagining a town called Bronson, Missouri, whose inhabitants stood menacingly in doorways and broke their silence only to say such words as, "It ain't over." Michael Winner praised him as a very, very good actor, even if his range was limited. Bronson once offered a more sober assessment. "Someday I'd like a part where I can lean my elbow against a mantelpiece and have a cocktail." Unlike other Hollywood stars, Bronson's journey wasn't that easy. At age 50, he returned to Hollywood as a star. In a 1971 interview, he theorized on why the journey had taken him so long. "Maybe I'm too masculine. Casting directors cast in their own, or an idealized image. Maybe I don't look like anybody's ideal." His early life gave no indication of his later fame. He was born Charles Bunchinsky as the 11th of 15 children of a coal miner and his wife, both Lithuanian immigrants. Young Charles learned the art of survival in the tough district of Scooptown, where you had nothing to lose because you lost it already. The Bunchinskys lived crowded in a shack, the children wearing hand-me-downs from older siblings. At the age of 6, Charles was embarrassed to attend school in his sister's dress. Charles's father died when he was 10, and at 16 Charles followed his brothers into the mines. He was paid $1 per ton of coal and volunteered for perilous jobs because the pay was better. Like other toughs in Scooptown, he raised some hell and landed in jail for assault and robbery. He might have stayed in the mines for the rest of his life, except for World War II. Drafted in 1943, he served with the U.S. Army Air Corps in the Pacific, reportedly as a tail gunner on a B-29. Having seen the outside world, he vowed not to return to the squalor of Scooptown. He was attracted to acting not, he claimed, because of any artistic urge. He was impressed by the money movie stars could earn. He joined the Philadelphia Play and Players Troupe, painting scenery and acting a few minor roles. At the Pasadena Playhouse School, Bronson improved his diction, supporting himself by selling Christmas cards and toys on street corners. Studio scouts saw him at the Playhouse, and he was cast as a gob in the 1951 service comedy You're in the Navy Now, starring Gary Cooper. Bronson's first starring role came in 1958 with an 8-day exploitation film, Machine Gun Kelly. His status grew with impressive performances in The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The Battle of the Bulge, The Sandpiper, and The Dirty Dozen. But real stardom eluded him, his rough-hewn face and brusque manner not fitting the Hollywood tradition for leading men. His most controversial film came in 1974 with Death Wish. As an affluent liberal architect, Bronson's life is shattered when young thugs kill his wife and rape his daughter. He vows to rid the city of such vermin, and his executions brought cheers from crime-weary audiences. The character's vigilantism brought widespread criticism, but Death Wish became one of the big moneymakers of the year. The controversy accelerated when Bernard Goetz shot youths he thought were threatening him in a New York subway. Bronson made 3 more Death Wish films, and in 1987 he defended them. I think they provide satisfaction for people who are victimized by crime and look in vain for authorities to protect them. But I don't think people try to imitate that kind of thing. Bronson could be as taciturn in interviews as he appeared on the screen. He remained aloof from the Hollywood scene, once observing, "I have lots of friends, and yet I don't have any." Bronson's family life was a true reflection of his unique and adventurous nature, filled with moments that were as unconventional and exciting as the man himself. Charles Bronson was still in his early career years when he met Harriet Tendler. The pair were members of the Plays and Players amateur theater group. When Bronson initially joined the group, he had been interested in decorations and scenery painting. Harriet was a Jewish woman and a successful dairy farmer's daughter, while Bronson, born Charlie Bukinski, was a Catholic and a former coal miner. However, he became drawn to acting with time and got closer to Tendler. On their first date, Bronson had only 4 cents in his pocket. The couple, married 2 years later with Tendler's father's reluctant consent. The two became man and wife in 1949, and they moved to California to chase bigger dreams as a couple. Bronson barely had enough to move with because out of the 5 suitcases they moved with, Tendler owned items in 4.5 of them. In California, Bronson worked hard at perfecting his art. He and Tendler were married for 15 years until their divorce in 1965. They had 2 children, Suzanne and Tony, before divorcing. Bronson walked down the aisle a second time when his career was at its peak. He first started an affair with his then-wife-to-be, Jill Ireland, who was married to David McCallum. Brown and Ireland later tied the knot in 1968. After NCIS star David McCallum's marriage with Ireland ended, he faced some difficult times. It was not until some 50 years later, in 2016, that he opened up on how the divorce affected him. McCallum established that he was very much in a better place, and he did not even hold any grudge when his ex-wife left him for Bronson. The star actor and Bronson met on Great Escape, and through this, he met Ireland. It was purported that Bronson once told McCallum on set that he would take his wife from him. However, this remained speculation for years. When McCallum was asked about this, he made it known that nothing like that happened. He stated about Bronson, "I never hated him. Charlie was always a good friend. I find that when problems come along, worrying about them and getting anxious and negative is quite unnecessary." Despite being amicable about his ex-wife's relationship with Bronson, McCallum did admit that it was a difficult period. He shared that he and Ireland were parents to 3 kids. The pair adopted 3 kids, with Jason being the oldest. When their marriage ended, Ireland was granted custody of the kids, which caused more difficulty for McCallum. Jill Ireland, just like McCallum and Bronson, was an actress looking to make it big in the industry. But love and romance were never ruled out. When Bronson and Ireland got married, they brought together a blended family. He had 2 kids from his first marriage, and she had 3 from her first. As a couple, they had a daughter together named Zuleika, and also adopted a daughter. Their adopted daughter, Katrina Holden, was the daughter of late casting director Hilary Holden, who had died of a sudden heart attack. Bronson seemed like he had a brood and could not afford to adopt Katrina, but he did. Ireland often played Bronson's leading lady, co-starring in 15 films with him. To keep the family tight-knit, they would often take all the children to film locations, basing their home wherever filming took place. They also frequented a colonial farmhouse in Vermont, where Ireland raised horses and trained their daughter Zuleika in horse showing. They also spent their winter holidays in Snowmass, Colorado. Unfortunately, after a long battle with breast cancer, Jill Ireland passed away at their home in Malibu in May 1990. She was first diagnosed in 1986, but the ailment came back with rage in 1989. Ireland passed at the age of 54. In December 1998, Bronson married for the 3rd time to Kim Weeks, a former actress and employee of Dove Audio, who assisted in the production of Jill Ireland's audiobooks. Bronson and Weeks were married for 5 years until his death. Bronson's life was like a captivating movie, filled with ups and downs, love, heartbreak, and hard-won victories. He faced countless challenges throughout his journey, but it leaves you wondering, what did he leave behind for his family? American actor Charles Bronson had a career spanning more than 4 decades and was one of the highest-paid actors of his time. Charles Bronson earned his fortune mostly through acting. He was a part of many classic films which were also critically acclaimed. He has also made a ton of money by acting in TV shows. At the very peak of his career, he was tagged as the highest paid in the entire world. He earned as much as $1 million for films like The Stone Killer, Chino, and Death Wish. The macho actor's last $1 million salary was in the 1976 movie St. Ives. Bronson's value doubled even more in 1983 when he earned $2 million from the movie 10 to Midnight. In addition to his film work, Bronson also appeared in several television shows. He starred in the Western series The Magnificent Seven, and he had a recurring role on the police drama Miami Vice. Bronson's television work earned him an Emmy Award nomination in 1985. Bronson's acting career earned him an estimated $50 million in total. In addition to his acting career, Bronson also owned a number of properties. He had a home in Malibu, California, and a ranch in Colorado. Bronson also owned several cars and motorcycles. Bronson's personal assets were estimated to be worth $20 million at the time of his death. Celebrities often receive strange and extravagant gifts from their loyal and enthusiastic fans. However, one of the most generous fan gifts in history was given to the Hollywood star, Charles Bronson. In 1996, a woman from Louisville decided to leave her entire $300,000 fortune to Bronson, her favorite actor, in a handwritten will. According to the New York Post, Audrey Nauer passed away in 1997 at the age of 55, leaving behind an estate worth $300,000. However, in a surprising turn of events, it was discovered that she had willed her entire fortune to Charles Bronson in a handwritten note. She did not want any of her family members to benefit from her money, stating, "Under no circumstances is my mother, Helen, to inherit anything from me. Blood, body parts, financial assets, etc." Nauer had never met Bronson, but she was an avid watcher of his films and kept a collection of newspaper clippings that referenced him. She particularly enjoyed watching his Death Wish films and regularly rented them from the Louisville Free Public Library. After her death, a portion of Nauer's estate went directly to Bronson. However, the will was later contested by her remaining family, represented by her sister, Nancy Cooper, when they realized the size of the bequest. It was suggested that Nauer was not psychologically stable when she wrote the will bequeathing her estate to Bronson. Instead, the family presented an earlier document, signed and witnessed by Nauer in 1977, which they argued should supersede the handwritten will. In this earlier testament, Nauer had ordered that her estate was to be divided between her relatives upon her death. Cooper argued that Nauer was incapable of taking the decision to leave all of her possessions to Bronson, suggesting that she was not in sound mind when she wrote the will. She suggested that Audrey was obsessed with Bronson to the point of mania. She obsessively followed his movies and his public life, spending hours in the public library searching for information about him. Bronson had originally suggested that he was going to donate all of the money to the library. This would have constituted one of the largest gifts in the institution's history. However, Bronson and Cooper eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, and the library ended up with nothing. Charles Bronson passed away at the age of 81 in 2003. His net worth at the time was $65 million. Charles Bronson was a generous philanthropist, and he donated millions of dollars to charity during his lifetime. He donated money to a variety of causes, including cancer research, children's charities, and animal welfare organizations. Bronson's charitable donations totaled an estimated $10 million. He donated money to the organizations like American Cancer Society, Children's Hospital Los Angeles, Humane, Society of the United States, and National Rifle Association. Bronson's charitable donations made a significant impact on the lives of many people. He was a true humanitarian, and his generosity will be remembered for years to come. Bronson's life was marked by a tumultuous personal life, multiple marriages, and a penchant for keeping his finances private. So, what about his inheritance? You will be surprised to know about his inheritance will. On August 30th, 2003, Charles Bronson passed away, leaving behind a will that would shed light on the inheritance of his vast fortune. His will was probated on September 15, 2003, revealing that he had divided his estate among his family members, close friends, and a few charitable organizations. His family received a big share of his estate. His wife, Kim Weeks, got 10%, giving her financial security after his passing. His daughter, Jennifer Nouse, received 5%, showing his care and responsibility as a father. Bronson also included his granddaughter, Christina Kronberg, in his plans, leaving her 5% as well. These shares ensured his family was taken care of. Bronson didn't forget his close friends and business partners. Walter Mirisch, a producer he had worked with for years, was given 5% of the estate as a sign of their strong professional bond. Harold Bronson, a trusted partner in many of his business projects, also received 5%. Both were clearly important to him, and he made sure to acknowledge their roles in his life. Bronson also supported charitable organizations that meant a lot to him. The Screen Actors Guild Foundation received 10%, showing his dedication to helping others in the acting industry. He also donated 5% to the American Cancer Society, likely influenced by his own battle with lung cancer. These donations showed his desire to give back and make a difference even after he was gone. Bronson's wife, Jill Ireland, inherited the majority of his estate. Bronson's children, Tony and Zuleika, also inherited a portion of his estate. Ireland died in 1990, and her estate was worth an estimated $40 million. Tony and Zuleika inherited the majority of Ireland's estate, and they also inherited a portion of Bronson's estate. Tony Bronson died in 2008, and his estate was worth an estimated $10 million. Zuleika Bronson is still alive, and she is the sole heir to Bronson's estate. We're certain many of you are quite curious to know that after all these years, where is Zuleika? Her sister Katrina, who is an award-winning film director, has been on and off the camera, but Zuleika never even once appeared in public. One thing that we have found is at the moment Zuleika is living in Los Angeles, California. She is currently single. She keeps her personal affairs and relationships private because she prefers to live a peaceful life free from media of public scrutiny.